Hey, hello everyone. Robert Kurnovich of Aero Advisors. Glad to see you again. We've been on a pretty good roll lately with these live streams. Let's pick one up again this week with this interesting group. Actually, why don't we go around real quick and let's do some real quick intros. Carrie?
Sure. Hi, I'm Carrie Tapscott. I'm a Director of Client Success here at Avero.
Mike?
Hi, Mike Cole, 34 years, retired law enforcement. I'm Director in charge of the public safety projects for Avero.
I'm AV. I'm the founder and CEO at Avero. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, theme this week, of course, is 4th of July. Any thoughts on 4th of July in general to open up this discussion? Anything you want to share, even though we're 2 days away, but it's getting exciting?
Well,
someone has said thoughts.
Always been an interesting, occasion for someone like me who can celebrate 2 Independence Days. But this is the one I choose, and as an immigrant, as a naturalized citizen, it means a lot to be able to celebrate July 4th. It's quite sentimental. I make it a point to put up my flag out there and celebrate, and then of course the fireworks and the hot dogs and the beer, right? So it's a very important day for our nation. It's especially important to me as this is my chosen nation, not one I was born in, but I choose to be American, and I'm very proud of that fact, as you all know. So real special day.
Yeah, my understanding though is you're also celebrating a World Cup win in cricket. Is that true?
Yes, and I almost wore my USA cricket jersey, but it wouldn't fit me. So the guys that sent it to me from Pakistan are not very good at what they do, obviously.
Congratulations. Mike, any thoughts?
You know what? I'm just so happy to be retired from law enforcement. I actually can enjoy the holidays now and not have to work it. So for all of our public safety folks out there in the fray, be safe, take care of yourselves and each other, and just appreciate your families when you get home.
Carrie?
4th of July is my favorite holiday and has been my entire life. My family gets together, a little family reunion. This will be our 65th year of doing it. So we have 24 family members coming to stay with us for the holidays. But a quick little fun story. When I was getting married, my wife and I were doing the traditional thing where we were deciding how to divvy up the holidays. You know, who gets Christmas with their family, who gets Thanksgiving. And I said, honey, you can have any holiday you want. 4th of July is mine in perpetuity. We spend it with my family. You can have Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. I don't care, but we get 4th of July.
Good deal.
Good.
For me, growing up in the military, 4th of July always just had this emotional connection of thankfulness and excitement and appreciation. And I love the fact that that's lasted throughout the years. You know, some of these holidays, especially if you're pretty busy, you sort of run past them and don't even get time to pause and think. But 4th of July is always a one, especially in the middle of the year, where you get a chance to reflect a little bit and get really excited that here we go again on July 4th. So the reason we're tying this into our discussion here is we can talk about independence in a couple of ways. First one is the founding fathers aspect of how far we've seen local government technology come. And my first observation I was thinking of when I read that is just timesheets aren't manual anymore. I was just so used for so many years, timesheets were done on paper, and then they evolved from that into Excel. But then even then, people were filling them out in Excel, printing them out, putting them in an interoffice mail and sending them over to payroll, and then payroll would still manually enter them though. So public sector technologies come a long way, especially with the pandemic, which is where the biggest change I saw. Suddenly all this technology that local government needed but was resistant, but the pandemic sort of forced the issue. They finally came to the realization that a lot of this is actually affordable and adoptable. And clients took a big jump 5 years ago or 4 years ago in fast forwarding their technology into the modern century. It was pretty rough before that, but I think we've come a long way just in these past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. What was it like, Mike, in 1776? I'm kidding.
You know, I was just thinking when you talk about technology and public safety, and you know, I started in 1989, and the new technology that we had that was really whiz bang cool. We actually had radios on our hips. not just in the car. And it was the size of a Volkswagen, and it had a whip antenna that went up above your head so everybody could find you in a crowd. But it worked. When I started, we still had red lights on buildings that they used to light up to tell you there's a call for service. Go find a payphone, and we all carried rolls of quarters because there were no cell phones back then. So when I started, the transformative technology that was going to change public safety was email. It was going to change the way we did business, and I think now we would all agree we're looking for a way to reduce the impact of email on our businesses. But probably the first real transformative technology for us that I experienced was cell phones. Being in the Rodney King era, cell phones were transformative in the way we did business. We couldn't get out of the car without red lights all over the place, filming everything that we did.
Yeah, Carrie, talk about the sort of what's the private sector has finally bled over into local gov, and there was that fear for a long time that all those solutions were just not affordable, but those walls have really been torn down recently, or torn down.
Yeah, in the past few years, there's been a lot of great sharing of technology from private sector back into the public sector. And I think a big thing is that for years, the public sector kind of stood by to watch to see what was going to happen and how the private sector could utilize technology to drive efficiency. I'm a big proponent of using technology to make your life more efficient, whether it be from integrating smart things at home to maximizing AI usage across organizations. And while there's still some hesitancy with AI, and I don't blame them, there's still a lot to figure out, but letting the private sector be the test bed for the public sector to observe and see what will work for them and how they can integrate it inside their municipalities. I think that sharing has really, like you said, started to accelerate with the pandemic. And hopefully it'll keep, getting more and more used widespread throughout municipalities.
Yeah, AI is a great point. AV, I know with your recent experience and looking at that, where is local government in terms of ready to adopt AI? Because it seems like the appetite is there, but they're just now sort of wrapping their heads around what that can do for them.
Yeah, and thanks for directing that at me, because I'm speaking at ICMA this fall in Pittsburgh on practical applications of AI in the public sector. And if you're in Pittsburgh in September, please come to that session. It's going to be fascinating. I think there's a spectrum, right? There are naturally early adopters of AI, early adopters of any technology, like bigger cities that are, Kansas City has done a lot in terms of adopting new technologies. Brian Platt, who was on our podcast, is the city manager there. And Baltimore's doing a lot of things. My buddy, Berkey Attila, he's the director of HR at Baltimore. They're doing a lot of things on AI, but it's not one thing that everyone's doing, right? Everyone is taking on a different flavor of AI in their own municipalities. And then there are clients that are completely against the notion, right? We've been in some demos recently where anything AI has been like holy water and crosses, and we don't want to talk about this in this room because our legal department has said we can't talk about it, or IT says we can't touch it. So there's a wide spectrum, and it's still the Wild West as far as AI goes. This is how I liken it, right? AI is like we've just discovered oil, and people are trying to figure out what to do with it, right? Mike, again, what was it like when oil was discovered? I'm kidding, man. But some people may have tried to eat it. Some tried to put it on their head and sell it as medicine. And then there were people that said, "Wait a minute, we can make the internal combustion engine. We can make roads for these cars that we're building now." And lots of industries came around. So it's like the gold rush too. Where's the money to be made? Is it in the gold, or is it in selling Levi's and selling shovels? So AI is quite fascinating. I don't think there's one direction that has been picked. There's a lot of experts. I'm not one of them, but there's a lot of experts that claim to know where this is going. I think the key is going to be how can it be made most practical, most quickly to our local government friends, either through embedding AI into ERP systems, which we're seeing, like we've seen some recent demos and product roadmaps where it's been, things like reporting, ad hoc information that an executive might need is being made available to you without having to ask for it. I think that's going to be the first practical application.
Kyler just posted a great question about what about data privacy issues with AI in government, and I think that is likely the most precarious in law enforcement. So, Mike, talk about the perception that there is where AI automatically gets associated with facial recognition or predictive analytics in a way that a lot of organizations are like, wait a minute, that is not a topic we want to approach with adopting new technology, as items like facial recognition and privacy concerns. So there's almost this idea of let's just throw out AI for now, or let's just wait and see how this develops, or wait for the political storm to blow over about data privacy.
Sure. I mean, obviously in law enforcement, we have a lot of other concerns that aren't involved in other areas. Organizations that are issues, how we're going to utilize technology, how it's going to impact constituencies, our population at large. And I think you're right. It really depends on how we define artificial intelligence or machine learning. There's different levels. Everybody jumps right to that facial recognition. They're going to run my face. They're going to get my driver's license. They're going to check me for warrants. They're going to send the police to my house. And there's a lot of different levels. We've seen a lot of advancements in technology that just do that, like you were talking about ERP, it aids. It doesn't do the work for you. It doesn't involve privacy issues. When we started license plate readers in law enforcement, the big concern was police are going to be tracking you everywhere you go. They're going to have maps of your patterns of movement, and those are going to be available to everybody. And it's just not really the case. The big concern with, I think, law enforcement is sometimes we're a little hesitant to tell people about the technologies because we're afraid how it's going to be accepted or looked at by the populace, and that's a bad position for us. We've seen that many times before. If we don't get out ahead of it and tell people this is where we're heading, this is what we're doing, this is how it's going to be used, these are the use policies that we'll share with you, people will assume the worst if they find out on their own what you're doing. So I think key for us is explaining that technology, being upfront, being transparent, and then having the use policies, and then making sure that there's audit processes that, again, are transparent, so we can prove that we're using it the way we said we're using it. We're not using it the way that we said we're not going to use it, and just build that partnership and that trust with the community before that technology is implemented. We've seen a lot of agencies that implement different technologies that their public finds out about, and once they do, they assume the worst. There's public outrage, and they have to pull all the technology because they weren't upfront about it in the first place.
Yeah, this is a great topic to bring Carrie in on, because you have a background in dealing with technology in legal environments. How's that data privacy concern handled, and what assurance is there with that technology that a lot of this is being protected and properly handled?
Sure, and there's many different facets to this. One can be just general data storage. Where is your data being stored? Is it being stored on site here in the U.S.? Do they have co-locations across the world that are under jurisdiction from different laws? They have things in Europe that might fall under GDPR, the General Domestic Privacy Regulations. Are there things in California where they have CCPA and now the California Consumer Privacy Act that have different laws and regulations around that data? It's still at the corporate level. Still, the vast majority of corporations want their data to be kept on site in the United States. I don't blame them for that. There's no, it's hard to monitor data centers around the world to make sure people aren't taking screenshots of files and folders that might contain private health information or bank account numbers. It's calculating the level of risk that individuals and corporations are most secure with, and figuring out what they're okay living with and what they're not. You look at, our individual lives. If you can get your internet at home for half the amount that you normally pay, so let's say you pay $100 a month, would you be willing to pay $50 a month if Comcast is going to be selling your information to advertisers? Some people would take that risk, others wouldn't. Corporations tend to be a bit more risk averse than individuals. At the government level, they are very risk averse, and considering that the taxholder or the taxpayers are the ones that fund everything, I don't blame them. I would want to make sure that my local and state government are very very strict with the way that our data is stored. Now, as far as AI and how that is viewed, it's difficult because I mean, what device in our lives has collected more data about us than anything else, and it's our cell phones. My phone, given at a certain time, they can go ahead and automatically give me traffic advice based on going to pick my kid up at daycare. And how has it done that? By collecting data about me over years and my traffic patterns. Am I comfortable with that? Yes. But just like Mike said, am I then comfortable with that maybe being shared with the local police department and saying that Carrie has been speeding 9 days out of 10 on the way to pick up his kid from daycare so he doesn't get late charges for his kid being there past closing time? It's tricky, and I think it's all about calculating the risk that you're comfortable with.
Well,
Yeah,
and
so-
I think to that point, sorry, Robert, but
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think it's a little too late, right? The
Yeah.
Government is slow to adopt newer technologies. By design, they should be. But this talk of privacy and what they're going to do with my pictures, it's too late. You gave Facebook permission 10 years ago while you were playing Farmville to use your likeness to do anything. I didn't ask. I didn't read the fine print. I said, yeah, of course, go ahead. I want to play this game. Use my pictures, use my content. What they did with that is train their large language models and their picture making AIs, whatever they call that technically, and it's too late. So now they're trying to put in some guardrails about what do you do about data from this point forward, and all these major AI companies, which now are not more than three, right? Microsoft, maybe Claude, and Google. They're still eating up data. The world's data has been consumed. So your privacy information has already been exposed, and with your permission, by the way. So now, how do you make this useful, and how do you put guardrails around what's in front of you today? Is the question. Privacy is a long gone conclusion.
Yeah, so ERP systems are becoming homogenous, like we talked about recently. Do you think, let's do some predictions here. See what do you think is going to happen in the future? Are we going to see a blending, almost indistinguishable, between what traditionally private sector uses for ERP and local gov uses, and talking about using big data and sources along those lines and technology? Are they going to blend together, or do you think we still got a long way to go? Who wants to take that one?
I've had deeply held theories on this and thoughts, right? Even 10 years ago, when you implemented ERP, you had an army of people living in your basement building a thing for you. You had to buy servers, you had to buy infrastructure, you had to staff up on IT. IT owned your ERP, the deployment and the implementation. And what we've seen in the last 10 years with the advent and adoption of SaaS and cloud technologies is they all are starting to look kind of the same. You expect an ERP system that has a financial component to it, which most do. You expect it to be able to run accounts receivable, accounts payables, payroll. The very basics of an ERP system are now guaranteed, and you can count on a system to have it. The lowliest of systems will have those functions that are basic. So it doesn't even make sense anymore when we do our requirements to ask if they can do it. We assume that they can do it, right? So our requirements processes become more streamlined. The other factor is that as these systems become more homogenized, and they're trying to differentiate on the basis of AI and how robust we are, how many tables we have. We heard Paul Byrne last week tell you how many tables SAP has. I don't know. Does that make it more robust? How many
170,000.
data? Yeah. How many does Tyler Tech have? Who knows, right? Who cares? As a customer, as a CFO of a town, let's just say a small town, a town that is a tourist attraction in Massachusetts. If you're the CFO of that town, you don't care about how many tables you have. You care about what can do for you. Can you make the state auditors go away because my chart of accounts is now complete? Can you help me determine what my cash outflow is going to be in August for my debt? All of those questions are what the CFO wants answered. They don't care about how many tables there are or how many places you have data centers, right? The one great example is the client, we met a JFOA that said, we pay a leading vendor that is their ERP system $60,000 a year just for cybersecurity and what did they say? Uh, uh, Disaster recovery. But the vendor cannot demonstrate to me how that can be done, or if they can do it, but they take 60K from me every year. So what it's going to come down to, and it is coming down to, as we go to more conferences, you see more disgruntled clients that come to our booth and say, this is why I'm shopping around, because these people don't answer my phone calls. So it's going to come down to customer service, the implementation experience, the negotiation experience, and how good the people on the other side are, just as human beings, because your systems are going to be commodities. They are commodities.
Hey, Mike, you just went through a series of demos, a lot of demos, actually. Tell me, what were the users, the customers in that room? What were they really looking for? And where did the vendors miss the mark on selling some of those things? What are the users actually concerned about when they're sitting there watching a demo of a new records management system?
Well, primarily, first off, it's going to be ease of use. It's got to be easy to use. There's got to be good workflows built in. It doesn't make sense to have to tab through 15 different fields that aren't applicable to the report that you're writing. They just shouldn't be there in the first place. So ease of use, workflow, and then we saw some platforms that were built for cloud infrastructure, that were optimized for cloud usage, and we saw some vendors that had taken an older product based on like an MSP product and just moved that square peg into that round cloud hole and just said, yes, it's a cloud-based architecture, but it's really not. You took an old architecture and you forced it in the cloud and you didn't optimize it. And when we're looking at that, it was night and day difference. It was very clear which vendors had actually rewritten their code and optimized for cloud optimization and which hadn't. And then I would say the ability to access your data. So in law enforcement, there used to be an old model that anything that you wanted to do, the vendor had to do for you, and they're going to charge you, and it's going to take time. Every time my chief said, hey, I need a checkbox to track whatever is council's latest concern, I would go to my vendor and it's, yeah, we can do that. It's going to be $5,000 and it's going to take us 2 months to code it every time. So clients are really looking for the ability to customize the software themselves, to add those fields, to be able to run analytics on those fields and get that information back out in a timely fashion without having to engage and pay and wait for the vendor to do that work for them. So I think those are probably the three big things.
Yeah, so Kyler had a great question. We can transition into talking about the independent consultant or the firm like us and how we really help clients with things like that. So Carrie, you want to take a stab at this? What benefit is a client going to get after having a consulting firm that is agnostic in terms of what the solution is? They're the party in the room who's either looking at this independently ourselves or is fighting for what the client wants. How does that work out?
It's a great question, and what I like about being independent, agnostic, is that a lot of times when you get a large group of individuals in a room, sometimes they start coming up with ideas and needs and wants for things that sound like great ideas, but they're things that might not be something they need in its entirely. Do I need a Porsche 911 Turbo? No, I can get by just fine with a Toyota Camry. But when you have people from the outside come in who are truly agnostic in their opinion of different platforms, they allow you to kind of see the forest through the trees and realize, yes, all these bells and whistles may sound great. They've got these flashy features. They might spit some sort of AI terms at you and things that it can do for you in the future, but that's not and may not be what your organization needs at that point in time. Additionally, by being independent, we're not locked into working with any one organization. It might have and carry bias with us on which services or platforms may be best for your community. It also allows us to work with a wide spread of a wide swath of different size and scale communities across the country. We can look at other clients that we've worked with and said, hey, this same size city, 150,000 people, their annual budget's within about 10% of yours. They've got this many miles of roads they manage, this number of city employees, and these are the things that are working for them right now after the audit or evaluation we just did for them. It also allows us to just know a larger group of companies that are out there and ones that we can recommend. I have been blessed that even in the private sector, I was technology agnostic. It would only recommend the platform that was best for the client, not necessarily the best for the company's bottom line. And that goes a long way when you're working with a city. You might recommend something that might, actually be the lesser of expensive options. And it's not because it's, of the huge cost difference, but it's going to be the one that's best for them. And they really appreciate that. I also just like the idea of not being tied to one platform. It allows you to have a better idea of what else is out there, and can also allow you to do third party, consulting as well, where you can, bring in, hey, this is a great platform, but they might not have the best customer service. Let us recommend a company that is specialized in in rolling out and implementing this solution behind your old firewall.
I want to bring up, as we're talking about independent consulting, the benefits are obvious, right? But I think our clients and prospects sometimes get misled by companies that are not truly independent. So what does that mean, right? In GovTech, in the field that we operate in, we have like 3 or 4 true competitors, and there's really at this point maybe 10 true competitors in the ERP software market, right? There's the big guys, Workdays, Oracles, SAPs. Then you have the up and coming OpenGov, GovSense, Tyler Tech's always been around, Central Square, and we just released a top 10 list of vendors. By the way, that list is our opinion, and it changes quite frequently based on how we're seeing these vendors operate in the market, where they're going, how they're treating our customers. So it's our list. So anyway, we made a list of those vendors. So when it comes to independence, there's a statistic. One of our competitors, and there's not many, right? There's Plant Moran, there's Berry Dunn, Soft Resources. There's one of them that has a statistic of steering 90% of their clients to Tyler Tech. How is that independent? I'm not going to name names, but if you want Tyler Tech, you better go with someone else, right? So what do you do in the consultative process then? Are you just eating up billable hours and money to take the client to your friend's company? So how is that independent? Even if you don't resell a product, doesn't make you truly independent. We're truly independent because we don't care. I don't think there is one vendor out there that stands out that has ever given 100% white glove, gold standard, diamond standard services to our clients. There's always something that they can't offer. So we don't take sides. But it's unfortunate that some do. And what we heard at GFOA, which is the largest gathering of people in our industry, from the vendor side, clients, from independent consultants, that some vendors don't respond to RFPs where a certain competitor is involved. And that's just not good for the industry itself, because it takes away meaning from what we do as truly independent consultants.
So AV, let me ask you, why did you start this firm? You had 20 options when you put this firm together as to what you wanted it to be. You also could have just gone and worked for a big consulting company and been just successful there. Why Avero? Why did you start that, and what were you envisioning?
This is all I knew how to do. One, in 2016. Two, I really saw an opportunity in the market for an independent, truly independent, technology agnostic firm to make its mark. And I took that chance. Again, in the spirit of July 4th and Independence Day, it's America. I found myself in a position to take chances and take risks and use my experience and knowledge and education to make something of myself. Remember, at the time, it wasn't a 35-person firm. It was just me trying to pay my bills, and I jumped in. So that's the why of it. But the why has become clearer in the last 8 years, because we've seen and helped so many clients through these ERP implementation selection processes as truly independent firm, where we've and keep in mind, I've had the options of reselling. I've had the options of becoming a partner of some sorts, where I'm, peddling a certain product or a vendor or hardware solutions. And we've steadfastly stayed away from that in the interest of being independent, because there today remains a huge gap in that position. I mean, look at Mike Gold's practice, right? In the public safety sector, nobody's doing what we're doing. There is no independent consultant for picking your RMS or your CAD system, or figuring out how does this tie into your state TBI, how state level Bureau of Investigation, by the way. No one's doing that kind of work. Everyone's peddling something, and I don't think there's value in that. But again, that might change, right? When these systems become homogenized, they all look like, sliced bread, and now it's a matter of your personal choice and what kind of sticker you want to buy. But we'll always remain independent. That's been a deeply held value when I started Avero, and it's proven itself.
Yeah, important to me as well. I mean, that's a big motivator as to why I'm here. So similar question to Mike. Mike's a special case. He had a successful career in the public sector, retired, and here he is. Why did you decide to come on board with this, Mike? What motivates you, and what's the reason why you wanted to come work for a firm like this in retirement when you could have just stayed home or traveled the world?
He still does.
We are still doing some travel in the world for sure. You know that. So obviously you guys know the answer to this question, but so AV I've known for probably close to 15 years. When I was in the public sector, we hired AV to come in and do actually a review of our alarm system. We had direct alarm monitoring, one of the few police departments where if your alarm rang, our dispatcher picked it up in the dispatch center. You didn't go to a call center. And we hired him, and we were very impressed with his work. AV and I, and Robert actually was the IT director for the town at that time, became good friends. We hired AV to do some more work based on his work product. I'm very happy. When I retired, I never planned on working in retirement. But these two guys came to me and said, hey, we would like to expand into public safety. That's your field. I worked in public safety technology for over a decade, implementing, running technology teams. And I just said, if I can add value to the clients, that's going to be my first priority. My heart's with the law enforcement folks. I was on the field with them. I bled through the technology implementations. I've made all the mistakes. And if I can help some other agencies not make those same mistakes, I'm in. And so that's what we're doing. We're using our experience, the mistakes that we've made, and our understanding of the current state of the systems to help out. We typically stay with these systems, these report management systems, or these CAD systems, dispatch systems, for 20 years. And so what you don't know what you don't know, and all you know is what you know. And I get clients when they're looking at replacing a system that don't know what the capabilities are out there. And it's our ability to look at what their processes are and talk about efficiencies, integrations. I get clients that say, when we say, hey, you've got a magic wand, you wave it, and your system can do anything in the world that you can imagine. What would that be? And I get clients say, if it could spell check the reports, that would be like next level world changing. And we look at that and say, think bigger. Because that's their world. They don't understand what's available to them. So it's that experience, being able to bring that forth, that really benefits our clients. And that's why I'm here.
Hey, Robert, let's take this question.
Please.
So many of these firms, and I'm assuming those are other consulting firms that claim to be independent, primarily audit firms. Is that an asset to clients due to their financial expertise, or can you speak to this? Great question. It's a double-edged sword. They're in the ERP and tech transformation business because they were there doing audit first, and someone said, hey, can you help us with modernizing our systems? They're not technology first. They're not business process first. They're not outcomes based. And like I said, some of them tend to be biased. So it's an advantage as far as helping you pass your audits. Maybe it's an advantage as far as maybe helping you set up your chart of accounts. But ERP implementations, those are minuscule parts of an ERP implementation. When the vendor comes in, they'll help you pick and choose and set up your COA. They'll help you redesign your processes so you have internal controls. You don't need a CPA to do that. And more often than not, a CFO is leading the charge on the client's end. And they know all of these things in and out. What's an independent consultant's audit-focused CPA going to do for you, right? And again, because of their biases, they might shove something down your throat that not necessarily is good for you. So some benefits, not many. What you need is a company that's focused on ERP implementations and selections, and not doing this business as we also do ERP consulting, but primarily our 3,000 employees do audits and compliance testing. Doesn't impress me.
Yeah, Carrie, how critical is selecting the right ERP system for a CFO? No small decision, right?
No, and it directly impacts their bottom line, their day-to-day operational capabilities. I just had a meeting last week with a town here in East Tennessee, and we met with their signs department, who's in charge of all the signs that are around citywide. And just hearing the process and how they're trying to utilize their current ERP system to manage that, 56,000 signs across a city, and try and keep track of which ones are aging out, which ones were damaged with an accident. It's critical to the daily operations, and it's very important to the CFO or COO even of a city to make sure that things are integrated well and working properly. It can directly impact their the way they're looked at in their organization.
Yeah, Carrie, talk a little more about maybe how those transformations have evolved, right? I mean, it's interesting offset in my mind that ERP systems are a different character now than they were 10 or 20 years ago. It's just as challenging of a selection probably, but it's different than it was years ago. It used to be a CFO and maybe 2 or 3 trusted people would do the entire system selection just based upon that. And certainly there wasn't the vast availability of information. And CFOs live in a siloed world traditionally, right? So they just made the selection the best that they possibly could, whether you used a consulting firm like us or not. It's different today. I don't want to say less complicated, but it's just a different landscape, and it's a more nuanced decision, I think.
It is, and I think it's so difficult because you've got these capital expenditures, right? And you're looking at 6-7 figure easily for some of these implementations, and you want to make sure you can spread out the cost of that across your entire city. But you don't just want to try and disrupt an entire department's operational capabilities because, well, we've paid for this and now you have to use it. It's making sure you've got the right people in the rooms, and that really doing some of the things we do for our clients on the front end, that discovery work on the front end to find out who can actually utilize these tools, who needs it, what needs to be updated, and then also taking a more from a CFO perspective, where are current contracts with the platforms we're using now, and how many of those can we look at terming out based on the new ERP system we're bringing in? Are we going to be double dipping by paying for our new ERP system and this HR solution, or can the ERP system handle both things? So there's a lot of front end work that goes into it, and trying to find out, your current contract situation, what this new system can handle, what it can't handle, what legacy environments do we need to keep on to renew those contracts. It's a very in-depth process. I don't envy the role they have at all, just because it involves so many moving parts. And I don't know, maybe AV, Mike, Robert, you all can speak to this, but at any given time, how many different vendors does the city have a contract with as far as solutions go? 50, 100?
Yeah, and to tie into the concept of independence, which independence implies the ability to have a choice and a selection. Right. A lot of consulting firms still stick to one specific formula for a way to get you there. Avero is taking a variety of approaches that best fits the client. You want to get that on the street and get this procured as quickly as possible. There's a really good path for doing that. If you want to have some process improvements along the way, or you're a new CFO and you're like, diving into the requirements is a great way for me to figure out what's going on in this new finance department. I want to take this a little slower and really dig into these options. Clients have that option. In fact, they really should exercise that option as well as to what's going to work best for them. There's a political factor involved with it too. Sometimes you've got a year to make this decision. Other times you've got 3 months, and the next year's budget is coming up quickly, and you got to get some costs into there.
Hey, question. What does independent or independence mean to you in the context of consulting? I mean,
Well, for me,
we
it's
talked about it slightly. Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, advocate for a client, which is my favorite thing to do. It's again, it's one of the reasons why I'm here is because I get to work with my clients and work with them to find what is going to be successful for them, and not just try and shoehorn or back them into an ERP system. Because as I talked about recently on another live, some clients are like, anything's got to be better than what I've got. Just give me a system. Hence the reason why there's multiple options there. Yeah, sometimes the best route is let's get you to a new system quickly and make sure that it's a correct system for you, but we're not going to spend a lot of time diving into details that are not really a factor right now. Just the ability to advocate for clients is my favorite thing. That's why I like doing this. That's why this is my kind of consulting firm.
Well, and it's not theoretic. It's not academic, right? It should be this way, but it is this way. And you saw that at GFOA. Again, it's most recent in my head. We had a booth across from a leading vendor. Next to us was a leading vendor. And we have a friend of the firm, Brian Turbett, Sheriff Turbett from Nantucket. He would go talk to each vendor and come back and ask us questions based on what he just heard. Is that true? Is this true? These guys are telling me this. You're saying this. What's true? And that's our position. We want that, right? That is a great spot to be vis-a-vis our clients, prospects, whoever is in the industry. Avero wants to be that firm, those people that people come to for the truth, for the real information. Because there's a lot of noise in the market. Everybody's talking AI. Everybody's talking about their platform's the greatest, how they've been around for 50 years, or how they're just a brand new startup and they're better. There's a lot of noise in the market. And our independence means that we are the clearinghouse of all of this information. Vendors come to us with info. They give us their latest and greatest pitches, show us all of their products, show us their roadmaps, where they're going. That's, by the way, how we came up with that list. We're keeping an eye and our finger on the pulse of the industry, where the products are going. And if you're about to think about, how to replace your 20-year-old ERP, like another dear client said to us at GFOA last year, can you help me get a divorce from my existing ERP vendor? We want to be those people that help you not only replace ERPs, but just think through how do you raise the funds for a project like this? How do you form the teams internally? How do you think about data conversions? How do you think about setting up a PMO? We have clients that are 100 employees to 6,000 employees. So at this point, we've seen it all, and we really are interested and serious about being the clearinghouse of knowledge for anyone that's in this field.
Yeah, Megan just had a great comment in there about being independent and providing unbiased, objective advice, and cutting through the noise. I think a lot of firms out there also get very complacent. It's very easy to rinse and repeat the same process over and over again. We look at things differently. We like to approach things with humbleness, humility, yet a hunger, because just because this is the way we did it a year ago doesn't mean it has to be done exactly like that just because this is the similar size organization or it's similar dynamics. The technology changes, the landscape changes, expectations change, and you have to stay in tune with that. Otherwise, you're going to get a great result that was fine 5 years ago. And even at GFOA, talking to some other software vendors, some of them are nicely rooted in 1997, and that works well for them. They have a base of clients out there that don't know any better. And they've always had that system. They like that system. They found their little niche in the market, and they're okay with doing that. But it's evolving too quickly in other areas. You have to really think outside the box on that. And that's not just for clients. That's for us as well. We constantly have to innovate and improve and look for new solutions.
Well, it's not a bad thing, right? If it works for you, if you've got the infrastructure and the support from the vendor and in-house to run a 30-year-old system that works for you, that keeps your people happy as employees, that provides the right kind of transparency to the public, that's providing you the outcomes that you need. That's where it falls apart. It's not necessarily that the system is old. We have nothing against old systems. The required outcomes, the vision for CFOs, for city managers is changing. That crop is changing. It's a younger crop that doesn't work on paper and pencil anymore. We saw this at ELGL, right? Our clients the demographic is shifting, and those are the driving reasons for changing systems. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's bad. Where systems fall apart, and we've seen this, perfectly fine systems that people mostly hate are being hated on because they don't respond to phone calls, they don't take support seriously, and they're just taking clients for a ride. $60,000 for disaster recovery, and you can't prove that you can recover from a disaster. It's just bad news.
Yeah, Mike, looks like you had a comment.
No, it's funny because we didn't even plan this, but it's exactly what we're talking about. In the demos, we had a recent demonstrator of software that had a 30-year-old system, and we looked at it and we said, it looks like it's built in a pretty old architecture. Do you have any plans to upgrade it? Because our concern is if they upgrade it and then they want to sell that upgrade to the client, the client just bought their software and 2 years later they're buying the software again. And they said, well, no, it's always worked great. We've never updated it. We have no plans to update it. And everybody from our client in the room is looking at this going, this is a beast. It's not easy to use. It's not built for cloud optimization. It's going to take us 10 times as long to do anything. And the vendor's saying that they never have any plans to ever update their software, and it can't do what the other modern platforms that we're seeing are doing.
That's a great question from Kyler. Have we ever said keep your old current system and optimize? I think so. We've recommended re-implementations though, right?
We've also done variations where, and this is key. You have to live with your system in the short term. Sometimes you have to live with it or 2 or 3 more years. It is in your interest to re-leverage if possible, and get the most out of that while you're looking for your new ERP solution. I think it's classic for organizations to go, hate this system, can't stand it, give me to a new one as quick as possible. And during that implementation timeline, let alone requirements definition and selection, wherever you are in the cycle, your end users are being punished by having to use a system that you're now taking your eye off of, because why do I need to feed and nurture that? I'm going to get rid of it in about a year, and that's not how it works, Carrie. That was my subtle way of throwing the question to you.
Agreed. You all, just with that question, with advising people to keep their current system, it got me thinking about being independent and being able to make that and say, hey, we actually think what you all have in place is great. We just need to find a way to maximize your usage of it. I was sitting here when you all were talking about being independent and thinking about a book I read last year called I'm Feeling Lucky. And I think it was employee number 37 at Google. And, Google's original motto is don't be evil. And this employee who wrote this book was in charge of developing and selling the very first Google Ads environment. And they had this decision they had to make where Google was meant to be this all perfect search engine that had no biased results. And now they're selling ads that can be pushed to the top. And so when you're searching for how to fix a pipe the right way, instead of it telling you how to fix it, it's now giving you ads for local plumbers. And I think that's what's important about being independent, is being able to take a step back and view their entire environment without bias and say, hey, actually, what you have is working really well. We have other clients who have the same platform we've worked with in the past. Let us talk to you about how we help them optimize their current environment to best suit their needs, without saying, oh, yeah, we want to sell you this ERP system 2.0 optimized. I also think it helps drive value to your client, let them know that they've selected the right consulting company when they're willing to help you make decisions that don't directly affect and improve their bottom line.
Yeah, Mike and I actually had something similar in the police department we both used to work for, where we were pretty unhappy with the relationship that we had with the CAD RMS vendor, and we were ready to throw them out and go with something else. And it was a serious consideration and a major cost, plus the disruption to do that. And we tried a strategy of have the software vendor come in on their own dime and re-demonstrate their entire system and find a path forward on it. And luckily, they were up to the challenge. They did a great job on that because we were able to re-leverage that relationship and that platform, saving a couple $1 million along the way. I mean, replacing these ERP systems is substantially disruptive and not necessarily financially. You got to factor that in. So 90% of the time, you really need to land on a new system. Don't ignore the 10% of the time where your best option is re-leveraging an existing good system that has sometimes self-inflicted wounds. No one stayed on top of the updates. No one, and this is what Mike and I were guilty of for a while too, is we got so fed up with that relationship, we gave up on dealing with the vendor for a year or two, and that relationship very quickly soured. So there's a balance in there you have to strike. And it goes back to that. There's not a, one solution fits all. It can be very nuanced, and clients need help in figuring out what that is. I'm reading the question that just came in from Kyler. Yeah, because the answer to this question for me is simple. The ERP system should improve your service delivery to your citizens. That's what it boils down to. And there's a variety of ways that...
read the question for your radio listeners.
Unpopular opinion. Isn't it the responsibility of local government to provide better technology to their constituents? It's about more than just efficiency. It's about their duty to serve. Yeah. Even decision makers and the ability to make a decision in delivery of public service, they need access to timely, relevant data and accurate data. I say this all the time because really that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. It's very easy to look at a process and go, you know what, great process improvement, but who does this really benefit? If it doesn't benefit the mission of the organization and the service delivery, you likely need to be spending your efforts in other areas. And that can sometimes be unpopular with folks internally because they just want a better way of doing things. And that's good, but you can't let that cloud your overall decision of, am I making a good solution that's actually going to enhance my service delivery? Because that's what your council wants. That's their ROI when they give you that money to purchase that system. What is it going to do for the citizens? How is it going to improve their ability to transact business with the town or the city from the comfort of their home rather than having to drive in and visit 5 buildings just to get, waste collection taken care of, fines and fees with the court, a demo permit, setting up a new utility billing account. This should very easily be done by any chosen device that the citizen chooses to use to transact with its local government.
I'll give you a little different. Sorry, I'll give you a little different spin from the public safety side. I would say that it's our responsibility to provide the technology that our public is comfortable with and our public wants. Because I can tell you all day long that I can implement a facial recognition system that's going to run wanted persons, known terrorists, send cars out and arrest those people on the street or driving in their cars all day long. But if that's not the technology that my citizenry is comfortable with, it's not the right solution. I came from a municipality that valued limited government. So I could have the latest, greatest technology implemented all over the city, but if that means more government intrusion on their rights, they're not going to be for it whatsoever. So I think there is a balance to that. I think, yes, the best technology at the most economical use of the tax dollars, but also is comfortable with.
There we go. Hey, let's close out with this question from Kyler. As we round out the conversation, noting that we're now halfway through 2024. It says 2025. It's actually 2024.
She's in the future.
Yeah, it's 12 months ahead of us. What is the one actionable step local governments can take today to start embracing that new technology? Carrie?
It's gonna be my fallback answer for almost everything, but embrace the cloud. in the computing power of larger corporations that allow you to host your environment up there in the cloud. It's start looking at for solutions that can take your environment off prem, make it more accessible to not only your employees but the citywide constituents. It's just easier and more efficient.
Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to fall back on something we said earlier for public safety, and that's have a conversation with your community. Talk to them about what you're doing, why you're doing it. If you're in an area where you have a lot of concern from the citizenry about how you're utilizing technology, think about having a community panel that guides and is a resource for your agency on what technologies are upcoming, so that they understand it, that they can say that they embrace it, and that they can explain it to the other people in their community, not the police department saying, hey, we're going to do this great whiz bang thing, but your community panel made up of your faith leaders, your community leaders that can go out and say, hey, we looked at this and we agree the police department should be doing this, and here's why.
AV.
Get help. I mean, get help from independent consultants. You all have day jobs, and we've talked about this at length, right? There's volumes on our channels. If you're a mayor, city manager, even a CIO, CFO, you all have day jobs. Replacing an ERP system, strategizing for modernization and digital transformation, you need a third party to come in and look at it from an objective perspective, and help you through this. Because again, as proven through this conversation today, we have our pulse on the industry, of the movers and shakers on the vendor side, and software vendors. They're starting to see the value in what we offer as independent consultants, but not all of them do. So take it with a grain of salt. And our experience has shown that every time an independent consultant's involved, that statistic of how many ERP implementation fails no longer is valid, because we don't let projects fail, right? Projects fail because you've either overpaid, paid for things you didn't buy, you've lost the balance of payments, you've paid for your ERP system up front. Lots of ways things can fail, and it comes down to management, project management, and keeping vendors accountable from selection through the go live process. So go check it out and invite us to either talk about this or help you through your processes. Don't do it by yourself.
Yeah, my comment is similar. Don't be intimidated by software vendors. The task you have in front of you, sure, be intimidated by all that all day long. It's a big undertaking. And there's no advice I can give you that's going to make you go, oh, ERP replacement, the easiest thing I'm going to do in the next 3 years. But just don't be intimidated by software vendors. You're paying a lot of money for a solution that has to work. Your expectations should be very high. Historically, that has proven to be true. Your expectations should be met and exceeded by the options that are being given to you. And if you don't like the options that are being given to you, look for other options and get a firm like us to help you look at what those options are. Don't think that I'm this size, so I have to go with this type of a platform and ignore best of breed. Explore those options. Don't be intimidated. This is the point where I usually tell everyone I love handing out free advice. So if you have any further questions for us, please contact us. You can check us out on all of our platforms. We enjoy having you with these live sessions. And happy 4th of July, everyone. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. And that's it. We'll see you next week. Bye.